Our guest today is Senator Bob Wieckowski, who's represented the East Bay in the legislature for more than 10 years. Thanks for speaking with me, Senator.
My pleasure, Tiffany.
So my first question is, what are the next steps we should take regarding COVID?
I got to get my volume up. I caught COVID. Let me see where my volume is. Sorry. Okay. Can you repeat that?
Yeah. What are the next steps we should take regarding COVID?
Well, we got to go hit the streets, as they say. You know, we have, there's just some people in the population that are hard to get. It's the people that are undocumented, the people that work 3 jobs that just don't have any time or raising kids. And they're not so much hesitant, but they're just hard to get. And we see that now where counties are going into areas where people buy at the grocery stores and their churches and having these pop-ups where they give vaccination. The second thing is we're going to have the hesitant people. And this is not the people that never want to get a vaccine no matter what. These are just the people that need more information. So I've gotten my double vaccine, but they need more information. So we have to get those people in the community to do that. I mean, I know that the administration is in the process of changing the COVID age limitation from 16 years old to 12 years old, right? So for the Pfizer. So the idea that the groups that have the Pfizer to look for the middle school and early high school folks to say, you guys are part of, you may not show great symptoms, you may not have a high death rate, but we need to get to that all elusive herd immunity. So I think that's what the focus is going to be right now, because there's plenty of vaccinations to go around.
So how can the government encourage people to take the COVID-19 vaccine?
Well, that's the tricky part. You can't, one of the things that you're seeing is in college, the UC and CSUs are saying, we're not going to let you come to fall classes unless you get the vaccine, sort of like we do with measles with the kids. So that is a gentle shove to say, okay, we would like to have you do that. The others is they make restrictions on how you can get on an airplane, right? Or how you can get into your concert. People want to go to a concert and saying, well, you can't go in unless you show that you have proof of the vaccination or, proof that you got the COVID. That we forget that if you've gotten COVID, then you're likely, you're immune, but people don't like to be counted that way. but that's another way to count it. I think more outreach, when I was talking about the population between 12 and 16 and 12 and 18 to, I can see campaigns at school sites and school districts. I mean, that's up to those guys to make that determination, but I can see them saying during the summer when they are saying, okay, we're going to have every, Saturday morning and have everybody that comes in the community, because it's pretty easy to walk to your elementary school. I mean, I know that there's exceptions to that, but most people can get to their elementary school as a opportunity.
What has President Biden done in office so far that you think is significant?
Well, he's acting like a grown-up. I mean, I think that the big part of it is that he acts like a grown-up. He acts like somebody who's been around government, because he has, and he talks. He's not incendiary. He's not trying to get people worked up and choose the us and them. I mean, it's a lot. He's got 4 years to undo or to make people feel comfortable or confident in their government. It's not everybody can do something wrong. There's a lot of distrust that people have on a good day of what's happening. I had a hearing yesterday and my subcommittee announced a $5 billion 5-year wildfire prevention plan. First time in California we've ever done that. Usually we do $200 million a year and say, okay, we're going to do some, cut down some trees. And now we're saying $5 billion over 5 years. It's a pretty aggressive bid. But even with that, there are people, I think most of the students at Castro Valley that can see live in the foothills or parents have told them about the Oakland fires, would like to see activities going on. So Biden has brought back people in the government, just average government workers. He's, by joining the climate accord again with the Paris agreement, it makes people feel like, okay, we're going to do our fair share. We want government to run properly, and we want to address these things. And dealing with the pandemic gives some people some assurances. Even if you're hesitant, you're saying, okay, he's running that program correctly, and he's looking to help spur investment into infrastructure and investment into people. He's giving people, you get $1,400, it's not a bad deal on your tax refund. So again, he's restoring those relationships that people have traditionally helped on. And young people like you, Tiffany, and Brittany, or others will say, I might want to have a career in government. I want to go in and do good and help out folks. So, that's this idea of trying to conquer poverty and child, making sure that children are fed and their medicines, and they get to school and they have a chance for success is, part of the narrative.
What would you like to see President Biden do next?
Well, I'd like to see him get that infrastructure package done. I'd like to see that we would have, we have a controversial high-speed rail program. Okay, there it is. But I'd like to see money come from the federal government that could build a tunnel at the Pacheco Pass that would bring high-speed rail from San Francisco to Bakersfield. Now, I don't know if people in San Francisco want to go to Bakersfield, but I'm guessing plenty of people from Fresno want to come to San Jose. And people see that, okay, this rail is going to help us reduce our carbon footprint. It's part of our government coming together and building for the future for you. So one day you can go to LA on the train. I think that would be another thing. I'm a wonky type of person, so I'd like to see the administration. We're talking about immigration reform and the people, the separation of kids and the border, and that's highly charged. The people get excited about that. I'd like to see the the immigration court completely redone. People don't realize, we say immigration judge, but it's not really a judge. It's an employee at the U.S. Department of Justice. So I'd like to see a separate, independent judiciary that deals with immigration, like you have in bankruptcy. It's Article 3. Not that you guys should get that, but you have a separate independent judge, and you have these courtrooms that they deal with this differently. They're not it doesn't matter who comes from, who's the president or who's the attorney general. They're there for 10-year terms, and they can do the work that needs to be done.
What do you think about the Derek Chauvin verdict?
Well, I mean, it was obvious to me and to a million other people that he was guilty, that this was behavior unbecoming of a police officer, and the sort of the brazen indifference that we saw for that 8 minutes and 46 seconds was shocking. And I think that there's the income inequality, the systemic racism that we have in our country is something that we're shameful of, and people don't want to talk about it, and have for 150 years not talk about it, or 250 years not talk about it, or to make some changes. So I think that we have in government, sometimes we have these log jams that we're unable, because of the people that the haves and the have-nots, they're able to stop things. And one of the changes that we never had is this idea of decertifying police when they're bad actors. Sort of, we've watched TV programs and movies about the thin blue line, where all the cops would come together and they protect the bad apple. And now we've seen that, unfortunately, Mr. George Floyd had to lose his life, and many other people of color lost their life. But we're seeing that decertification process and transparency being brought to that. We just passed the bill here last week, last week where I was on the Judiciary Committee, and we embraced the decertification, this idea that cities and police can't have immunity when we have a civil rights action, and that we allow a wrongful death action to come in, because sometimes you couldn't sue the police officer or the city for the wrongful death. If you were injured, yes, you could, but once you died, that was taken out of the law. And when I say it out loud, most people would say that's a crazy law that we would have that. But those are some of the procedural things and fundamental changes in the law that have to be done, that are proceeding in California. And as you know, California leads in many of these avenues. So we hope that other states are doing it independently.
What do you think should happen next concerning civil rights?
Well, again, I'm going to get wonkish. One of the things when I was graduated from Cal, I had an opportunity to work in Washington, D.C. That's where I started. I worked for Don Edwards, who was depending on what decade, he had parts of Castro Valley and Hayward and Livermore and Fremont and San Jose. He's from San Jose, Santa Clara. And when we passed the Civil Rights Act in 1965 and the Voting Rights Act in 1964 and the Fair Housing Act in 1968, they had limited terms. So when you got to 1978, you had to they did amendments to them, and they had like the Voting Rights Commission. They had to extend that commission for another 10 years. So I had an opportunity, just by luck, and they did bankruptcy reform, to have these really heavy duty civil rights pieces of legislation. And one of them you hear about is Article 5, and it talks about the discrimination people may have in housing. And we have, the discussion is that we have still on the books some discrimination that happens in the voting also, how the lines are drawn we're doing a census right now, and we're drawing the lines, and how you systematically dilute the brown vote or the black vote or the Asian vote, because you say, okay, we're going to give everybody 40%, so that 60% will win. And that's sort of a vulgar explanation. But I think what we have to do is get into the law offices and the legislature and make those changes. I mean, there's enough. There'll always be protests and people be on the street, and that's a necessary portion. But now the time has come where we have to go in and make the fundamental changes to how the law is applied, so that good judges and bad judges are going to be stuck with saying, oh, now I understand. The legislature is telling me I can't do that. I can't use my implicit bias to, exclude these folks.
What do you think about the Governor Newsom recall effort?
Not much. We're dealt with a pandemic. Okay. And we have done, as they say in tennis, lots of forced errors. And some of that has come from the CDC, right? The Center of Disease Control in Washington. Wear a mask, don't wear a mask. Bleach everything that you have until the cows come home. Don't bleach everything you have, stay 6 feet apart. But as we've gone through, we have followed the rules more or less. The Bay Area generally has done an outstanding job. That's why San Francisco and San Mateo are in yellow now, because we've gotten control of it, because we follow rules. We say, okay, wear a mask. Well, we knew in 1920 when we had or 1918, when the last pandemic was, people went to jail if they didn't wear a mask. You go back 300 years when the king and queen or the lords told you people were dying from diseases, people got mad about that, and they chop off your head or something like that as the rules. I mean, there's always this portion of the population that is mad and upset about being told to do something that they don't want to do. Like those of us who wear masks, I don't like wearing the mask, but it's right here in my pocket, and I put it on when I walk out. So the recall has sort of coalesced over that, and then this expensive dinner at French Laundry, and there's okay, that's a mistake. That's a mistake. I mean, some people don't like anybody eating at the French Laundry. I've done eaten there once because my wife wanted to. I just sort of eat regular food, but it was that symbol that people want to have a, um, a reason to be angry, And I said the guy who used to be in the White House, he loved for people to be angry. So a lot of the people that are used to being angry, now they want to be angry about this. And it's like, on the governance side, I'm, I don't agree with everything that Governor Newsom has done, but I didn't agree with everything that Jerry Brown did. I mean, that's my job. I'm a state senator. I'm not just supposed to say, I'll do it too. I'm supposed to challenge them and make policy better. So it'll be a lot of money. It will be unsuccessful. And my concern is that it's a diversion over the necessary work that we have to do here in the legislature, because the governor, instead of sitting down with me and talking about uh, the recycling overhaul of the bottle bill, which is a very big piece of legislation, has climate implications and good stewardship with making sure that we reuse things. He's got to be in Fresno or Castro Valley at a fundraiser or at a speech to talk to people about why they should vote for him again. So that's my thoughts.
What do you think about the idea of tuition-free college?
I love it. What is there not to love about it? It's it's Tiffany, when I went to Cal, I paid $261 a quarter. We were on the quarter system. So you can do quick math. That's not $800 a year. So even making, $5 an hour, it didn't take me a lifetime to pay for college, right? So I was able to do that. The housing, there was cheap housing. It was not the best housing, but there was cheap housing. You can't find cheap housing. You can't find a 2-bedroom apartment that you could share with somebody to live on a campus. It's $5,000 or some crazy ass number. So I think the new norm that everybody should get 16 years of education is a good idea. I think making, as California, what we're going to do is we're going to make community college free, so that, and we don't have the best community college because you get so many types of people in there. When you look at the statistics of how many people graduate in 2 or 3 years, it's 25%, 20 something like this. So I think that having that free gives people an avenue to really buckle down and say, okay, this is, I don't want to be so far in debt. And when we get to what's it called, the grant program, middle class scholarship, we're putting more money in the budget this year. So it's not totally free yet, but it's going to be less frightful. Brittany had a hand up.
No, it was a clap for what you said.
Oh,
because
okay.
I'm actually in community right now, finishing up to go to the next place. Sorry to interrupt, but I was just clapping for free community college. That's what I was clapping for.
Right. And help people set their goals. I mean, let's face it, Tiffany, it's like everybody else. When I was a senior in college, I knew I was going, or senior in high school, I knew I was going to college. My little cluster of people knew, but there were some people that, at least back then, we had the GM plant, in Fremont. So people would go. I have friends that went directly to work for the GM plant, or in Union City, they had the Union Pacific steel mill. They made steel in there. So there were physical, like old-fashioned jobs that people could do to make money. And those, I was in college and they were already buying houses. You could believe it, right? Because it was, and they had a different pathway. Now that, if you finish high school, you're working in fast food. Maybe you got some other deal that you get some money, but we need to get more of the boats to rise up and have this really an option for them. And maybe the 2-year degree, or maybe a specialty that they have a career. They're not waiting tables. Although I love, I waited tables when I was in college, and it's not a bad thing, right? But you want people to find something that they're passionate about, and if they're going to do it for their lifetime.
What are you most proud of achieving in office?
Let's see. Well, I've done a whole group of bills about how on, let's call it income inequality and debt reorganization, right? I mean, I'm a bankruptcy lawyer by trade. So what I've done is in the, if you owe somebody money and you don't pay and you get a judgment, what they can do is they can take that judgment and enforce it by going and taking your wages. And it used to be 25% of your wages that they can take. And if you're middle income, you're done. So I got that reduced so that it would be for people minimum wage and just over minimum wage, you can't take their income. But as you go up towards $80,000, which is not that much in the Bay Area, you get a percentage of your income. So it helps people stay alive, I guess, as they try to feed their kids and stay in their apartment. The same thing, another way that they can they can go into your bank account and take all your bank account. So I changed that and said that, no, you can't do that. The first $1,778, sort of an odd number, but that's what a family of four needs to live on per month, that would be exempt. So those are things that nobody's ever going to remember that, Tiffany. And you'll probably forget, it doesn't matter, but what it does is it made life a little bit better for people who are struggling with debt. And I did last year a language on a homestead exemption. People think that your home's protected, and actually your home was only protected for $75,000. So we upped that to $600,000, which last year that was the average price of a home. This year it's $750,000. The price of home has gone up. So even though I had this big success last year, I'm already $150,000 down on it. So those are the things that come to mind. I've done a lot of work in environmental field, on climate change. I did a couple of 3 bills on accessory dwelling units, mother-in-law units, which is really provides an opportunity for housing for people in an affordable way. So I think those are the highlights.
Thank you for talking with us today. We really appreciate your time.